Okay, we are continuing where we left before the lunch. And if I remember correctly, we left at the state where our mock was on a smooth shading. So let's click our mock base active and press number 1 so we can get it back to the low poly. The other thing what we have to do is to make our reference image visible again. So I'm clicking my image plane on the outliner and then pressing H to get it visible. And then I'm pressing spacebar and I'm jumping into quarter view, and from quarter view I'm jumping to side X view. And the next thing what I'm doing is I'm actually creating more geometry from the creation menu. So I'm pressing spacebar down and then I'm navigating to the creation menu and I'm selecting the cylinder with the options window. I'm opening it with the options window, and at this point I might want to add few axis divisions for my cylinder, and I think I want to put number of axis divisions at this point to 20, because we are using this cylinder to create our handle. We need those axis divisions more for the cylinder than for the mock base. Okay, and then just press create. And as we can see, our cylinder will appear in the origin point of our grid. And after that, I just press W to activate my transform tool, and I'm going to move it uh, near the handle on z-axis wise. And the next thing what I'm doing is I press E so I can activate the rotation tool. And now I want to rotate this 90 degrees on z-axis, so I can turn it on its side and I can start to form the handle out of it. So as we learned earlier, we can come up here, and when our rotation tool is activated, we can type here 90 and press enter. And then our handle is looking like now, or our cylinder is rotated 90 degrees on its side. If you had this transformation tool active, your cylinder probably uh, well, is not visible anymore. So Command C, put your rotation tool active and continue with that. Then I'm pressing W, and now I'm turning my selection method to be face, and I'm actually selecting with tracking selection half of my cylinder So I will paint half of the cylinder to be orange, and then I'm just pressing delete on the face selection. So I delete half, and after that I drag and select these triangles and delete those as well. So I'm left with the uh, only with this side of the cylinder and those faces. If I jump with space to the uh, perspective view, I can see that I have this left. And now I double click on the face selection, the cylinder, and move it up here, kind of middle of the handle. And I'm jumping back to side X with spacebar. And the next thing what I'm doing is that I'm pressing R when I have all the faces selected, and I'm scaling it Y on Y axis. Okay. After that, I'm changing my selection method to be Vertex Selection. And I'm selecting all the vertices with tracking selection and pressing R and scaling it on the Z-wise. And then again on the Y-wise. And just trying to make it fit as good as I can with scaling to the handle or the reference image. After this, I can start to work with the individual vertices. So I come here on the top and I select this vertex, and then I move it a bit down like this. This vertex with tracking selection need to be moved up. This vertex need to be moved like this. And so on. I will fix this. I select that one, then I select that. And tracking selection, I will select this. And now I'm at the state where I'm quite happy with the vertices like this. And if I press spacebar now and jump back into perspective view, we are seeing that we have only faces here. There is no volume on our handle. So the thing what we have to do is that on top of my mesh, I'm pressing mouses right now and selecting the face. I'm double clicking the face. So all the faces are now selected. And after this, I'm pressing extrude. And although our extrude is showing that you can pull it outside from the original mesh, I'm pushing it actually inside. So by selecting all the faces, I can extrude out of those faces like 3 new faces, and now we have volume on our handle, as you can see. The reason that our handle is now black is that the inside face is now facing the camera because we didn't push it out or pull it out. It kind of reversed the inside, which should be not facing the camera outside. So the thing what I'm doing here now, I'm selecting this whole cylinder on the object mode. So it needs to be highlighted, it needs to be visible. And the path where we can correct this mistake is that we go up here on the toolbar to the mesh display, and then there is option called reverse. We just have to tap this reverse, and now our handle is looking like normal. So every time you get these black polygons appearing to your scene, only thing what you have to do is either you select the whole object, which will flip or reverse all the faces of your mesh, or then you can just, if I'm now going back to the face selection and selecting individual face, and then I'm going back to the face or mesh display, and then I press reverse, I can reverse this one face. So every time you see this dark face here, you can just select it and then go to mesh display and reverse, and now the curse is reversed and it's looking like normal again. Okay, few things before we proceed and before we weld our handle to our mug is that we need to go to the face selection and remove these faces, these end faces from this handle, and I delete those. And the next thing, of course, is that I jump by using space to the side X view, and I'm changing my selection method to be Vertex Selection, and I will fit these inner vertices with tracking selection. So I just drag and then I modify the mesh to fit the reference image like completely. Like this. Okay. And it's looking good now. And the next thing what we have to do, as you can see, now we have two separate objects. So we have mug base and the cylinder, aka handle. We have to combine these. So here is one new tool, what you haven't been introduced before, which where with what you can combine two different meshes. So I'm here in the outline editor, clicking first mug base, then pressing shift down and clicking the cylinder. So now both are highlighted. So both are selected. After that, you come here to the modeling toolkit. And here under the mesh section is called tool combine. Now when you have selected these two objects on object mode and you press this combine, Maya will combine the handle and the mug together. So now they are on the same mesh. But when we look in the outliner, you can see that there is mug base 1, which means that we have this icon where is this plane or divided plane or the plane with the cross. This means that it's a geometry. But then there is two new icons, P-cylinder 1 and mug base, and there is a plane with an arrow. Every time you get this kind of, or not every time, but usually when you get this type of icons to your outliner, it means that you have some history on your model. And this is very Maya problems again, because Maya saves awfully lots of history and history states. Just similarly than in Photoshop you have the history for your layer. Maya has options to keep history for every model in the scene and then modify those history states later. And this is basically a transform node here, this icon with the arrow. So although we have now welded together these two meshes to be mug base 1, Maya still wants to keep their original transforms, so their original positions in history. And we don't want to keep that history because we don't need it. So the thing how to get rid of this history is that we select our mug base 1 and then we go to the edit up here and delete by type, and then you select history. When you press this, the transform nodes are gone and you don't anymore have access to those transform nodes, and we don't need those. So that's why it's good or good manners to clean history in Maya on time to time, because otherwise your outliner gets so scrambled and there is lots of unnecessary stuff. So please, from time to time, when you are doing these combining actions, remember to click your object and come here, edit, delete by type and history. Of course, now you will ask why there is also delete all by type history. What is the difference between these two? Well, the delete by type history deletes only history from the selected object. If you are selecting delete all by type history, it will erase all the history from the whole scene. And that's something what you don't want. Especially when we are proceeding to the rigging stage, you don't want to delete history from the objects what are already rigged, because it will break everything. So the safest selection here is to delete by type history. And now we are ready to start connecting our handle to our actual mug. So I'm jumping back into the side view. side X, and then I'm changing my selection method to be edge from the modeling toolkit edge. And now under the bridge tool, the multicut tool what we use to do control edges, we are going to use it again. So down here under the bridge, multicut tool, I'm selecting it, and then I hover on top of the vertical edge and pressing Control, and I'm matching this edge loop to hit on the connection point of the handle. So as we can see here, our handle get little bit more wider than it's here. So that's why it's not uniform where we put this edge loop. And please be careful here, because you don't want to put this edge loop inside of the mark. So safest point to start to put this is here, the outer edge. And now I'm pressing mouse left to apply it, and then I'm going to apply pressing Control, so I get the whole edge loop, and then pressing mouse left, I'm applying edge there. And now to the lower edges, I'm clicking it here, mouse left, and here with the mouse left. And now I have the points where I can connect my handle. And now I'm pressing the Q to disable the multicut tool. I'm coming back to the 3D view, and as I can see at or the perspective view, and at this point I can select the image plane and press H to hide it. And now if I come here to looking my handle, I can see that my handle is actually not as wide as the mark or the section of our mock base. And that's actually a good thing, because it's more realistic that the handle is not so thick. But we have one operation what we have to do to make this make sense, or make it fit perfectly to our mock. So I'm changing my selection method to be face. And then I'm selecting these faces, what we just created, and I'm going to delete those. After that, I'm changing the selection method to be edge selection, and I'm double clicking here to get all the 4 edges from the hole to selected. And then I'm pressing extrude, and then I'm pressing R. I'm not pulling it out, but I'm scaling it down actually, like this. But the downside here is that we are just doing arbitrary scaling, not exact scaling. And if we want to do exact scaling, it means that we can use it for the both of our holes, and it would be more useful. to do it with both of the holes in the mark, if we can use exact values. So I'm pressing Command C and Command C again, and so I pressed a few times of Command Z because I wanted to be sure that the extrusion haven't happened yet. So now I'm pressing extrude, pressing R, and then I'm coming up here and I'm going to type values here. So 0.7 tab 0.7 tab 0.7, and now if I'm pressing enter, Maya will scale everything 0.7 downwards. And I probably have something else selected. No. Okay, Command C, and I think I only need X and Y axis to be 0.7. The thing what happened on my scene was that I accidentally turned this use lights option. So if you sometimes your whole mess is going to be black and the reverse doesn't help you, just press this light bulb here. So then the scene will be lighted. Okay, but back to the original problem. So I'm pressing extrude, then I'm pressing R, and I'm putting 0.7 and 0.7 to only X and Y. But the result is not still what I really want. But it's closer. So then I just can lift this up like this. And then I'm doing the same operation for the lower part of the mark. So I'm selecting all the 4 edges with double clicking, pressing extrude, pressing R, and typing up here 0.7 and 0.7 to the Y. Then bringing this down. So now we have narrowed the hole to be more closer the size of the handle. One mode what I haven't shown you is the wireframe mode. You can find it here. Under the panels there is this wireframe icon. And with the wireframe icon we can see through the mesh. And these edges here are currently my handle. So I need to fix that handle or shrinken it a bit to be as wide as the our hole. So I'm pressing on top of my handle, mouse is right, and then selecting the face selection, double clicking my handle to be active. Now I can see it there, and then I'm just pressing R, and on the X axis I'm scaling it down a bit and moving it with V tool, W tool, and then scaling it again. So I can see that this edge is almost on the same state as this edge. You don't necessarily have to do that on the orthographic view. You can do it also in the perspective and match it here if it seems to be easier. And after we have matched these, we have the chance to do the bridging again. So I'm selecting the edge selection from the modeling toolkit or the component editor. Sorry, by pressing mouse right and then selecting the edge. And now I'm selecting the facing edges 1 and 2, and then I press down here bridge, and it will bridge these two objects, and that and that, and bridge, and then this edge and this edge and bridge, and then this edge and this edge and bridge. And the next thing is this edge and this edge and bridge, this edge and bridge, this edge and bridge, this edge and bridge. And now our handle is connected to our mug. If we click our mug on object mode, so basically you can press on top of your mouse right on top of your mug and then select object mode, and then press number 3 to smooth it out, and it will smooth quite nicely. If we watch our reference image here, the handle around here is not as smooth or curvy as it is in here on the connection point. So things what we can do for that is that we add one more control loop here as we added here into the bottom. So I'm selecting my multicut tool again here, and now I'm pressing control down and creating control loop here, and then pressing control down and adding another control loop here. And now if I'm pressing number 3 and then Q to deactivate tool, I made it a little bit nicer than it was earlier. So this is all the finessing stuff what you can do when you are modeling even the simple objects that you can add. And actually, if we select this mark and come here bottom of it, we could actually add few more control loops down here. So I'm selecting the multicut tool, pressing control, and here on the bottom of the mark I'm adding one control loop here, and then as well 2 control loops for this section here. So I can do those again. So pressing control on multicut tool selected, and here. And now when I'm turning my smooth preview with number 3 on. They are a bit sharper, bit nicer. And it's looking quite nice, the mark at the moment. Which means that at this point I recommend you to save. So Command S, and now the mark is saved. The next thing what we can do before we start UV mapping is that we can take test render out of this mark. So we will prepare lights, and then we just render with Maya's current render engine, which name is Arnold, the mark with the ceramic default material. Okay. The thing what we have to check is that if Arnold is downloaded. So we come up here. So we are just checking that the render plugin is allowed. So we come up here, Windows, Setting and Preferences, and from here we select the plugin manager, and plugin manager look like this. And from the plugin manager we should scroll down all the way to the bottom, and then there should be the Arnold renderer. Some reason Arnold is not installed on my computer. But yeah, if you see in your plugin manager Arnold, just check it on and then close. Yeah, at this point we could have a 15-minute break. I will install Arnold to my computer and then we just continue with the rendering and then the UV mapping.